Welcome to Leap Today. I'm Janelle Millard, president of the Leap Enterprise, and it's a pleasure to introduce today's episode. Our host, Bill Farmer, vice president of Leap Media, brings the Leap masteries to life through conversations with leaders, luminaries, and lifelong learners. Today's guest is Mark Luncher. Mark is a seasoned engineering and national security leader whose career spans hands-on technical work, enterprise-level program leadership, and strategic influence across government and industry. Mark currently serves as vice president at SAIC, following senior roles at several leading defense and technology contractors. Earlier in his career, he contributed to the Office of the Secretary of Defense and began as an electronics engineer at the Naval Surface Warfare Center. Mark also spent time at Transformation Systems, the exclusive licensed provider of Leap products and services for the federal government, giving him a unique connection to the Leap framework and its impact on federal leadership. He holds a master's degree in engineering management from George Washington University and a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Gannon University. Bill, I'll turn it over to you to welcome Mark and begin the conversation.
Mark, welcome to Leap Today. I'm really glad that you're here with us. Your career is a real example of the Leap masteries in action. I'd like to start at the beginning and walk through those experiences that shape the way you think and lead. Your academic years played a key role, so let's start there.
Sounds good.
Okay. What first drew you to electrical engineering for your bachelor's degree, and how was your time at Gannon University in the way it shaped your understanding of problem solving and systems?
It's a great question, and I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. That time of my life was exciting, like it was for anybody's when you're starting something new. But I would say two things really shaped my thinking around why to go into electrical engineering and why to choose Gannon University. The first one was family. My family values were around education. My father was a double E himself. So I knew, from his experience and from his parent lecturing about why engineering was important, how it taught you how to think, how it was a good basic life skill, and the value of, STEM education. And I love math and science. So family was one. But the second thing was a defining early decision that I made, which was I was an athlete, a swimmer, butterflyer, and I had an offer to be a preferred walk-on at a Division I school.
Oh.
But I also had thank you. And I also had a Division II scholarship opportunity at Gannon University. And so I decided to choose the better fit for me over the more prestigious, Division I school that was a bigger school with a brand name. And it was a really good decision. The defining moment for me, though, was around making a decision that was core to your values. So for me, I was going to be able to help earn my way through school through scholarship. I was going to be able to go to a school that was a smaller school, which was really helpful as both an engineer and an athlete. It helped me be successful in my studies, helped me be successful overall in life. And
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So those two things, family and just that sort of early decision making, to me really shaped why and how, who I am today.
Found that. I think Gannon's in Pennsylvania.
Gannon is Pennsylvania. So it's Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And it was, 2.5 hour, drive right up, just straight up north. It was a Catholic university as well, Jesuit, and my family's Catholic. So there was a lot of reasons why that seemed like a great fit at the time.
Perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So you later earned a master's in engineering management with a concentration in environment and energy, I believe, at George Washington University. What motivated you to enter a master's program? Mm-hmm. And how did that influence the way you approached leadership and organizational thinking?
That's a great question. So in my early engineering career, there was things to learn as I was a double E, a performing double E. But I became fascinated by things that seemed apparently obvious and easy, like, managing a schedule. Why are there cost overruns? Why are we having this conflict between, different departments? So I found myself gravitating to those problems and thinking these are easy problems to solve. Not so much, right? How systems work together, how people work in systems is complex. And so I decided I wanted to go for, rather than a technical master's, but go for more of that management master's to learn how, key things like how do finances flow through an organization? How do you manage profit? How do you make profit? How do you make hard decisions from, lack of information? But, relevant for our conversation here, how do people interact in those systems? Mm-hmm. And so I found myself just gravitating towards those types of problems and actually doing well, and finding that, when many of my peers may not be doing well in that area, that was an area that I could excel in.
Yeah, it's obviously served you well. Mm-hmm. You've had a great career.
Thank you.
Still having a great career.
Thank you.
So when you look back at those academic years, who are the mentors or influences that help develop your sense of personal mastery? And that includes courage, commitment, and curiosity.
That's great. Well, I'm going to just kind of focus in on one very early career. SES that I worked for at one of the naval air stations that I was stationed at. He was the executive director. And what struck me early on when I met him was that he had very clear personal values. And he would share those with me and share those with people around him. 1, 2, 3. And he also had very clear short-term, long-term goals that tied right into those core values. And so what I learned early on in my career was, bringing yourself into and integrating that into your work world is the best way to go, because you want to have that alignment. And if you're going to really develop personal mastery, you're going to want to be able to align your work values with your core personal values. And so that was an aha moment for me when I made that connection about why that was so important. And I remember something that struck with me. He had said, look, if you're in this job and it's not where you want to be, I will help you find a place where you want to be, even if it's not here. And that really resonated with me, that he cared about who I was as a person, who I was as a professional, and bringing those two things together to helping me be successful. That was something I took away from my initial interactions with him.
I know from my personal experience and my career, when I had a mentor that really was invested in me and I was invested in them, those were the discussions and the learning experiences that really stuck with me and helped me grow. And that's what we're constantly doing, right? So your career began in a very hands-on environment. How did your early experiences as a project manager and electronics engineer, I almost said electrical, but it's electronics engineer, at the Naval Surface Warfare Center, shape your understanding of technical discipline and personal accountability, and I'm assuming in a very complex operational setting?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was an electronics engineer by role at the Naval Surface Warfare Center and was performing on a team. And this kind of relates to a little bit something we already had talked about, which is from a technical standpoint, I was performing fine. The team was performing fine. But we were finding that there were challenges in the cost and the schedule and the performance and the cost and schedule aspects of the project. And so those problems, again, seemed like intuitively obvious, easy problems to me. And it turns out they're not, right? Humans working in any organization is complex. In addition, thinking about leadership and where you have formal leadership and formal authority and where you have influential authority was sort of a new concept to me, right? Because it seemed to me that if you're performing for a mission and you have formal authority and power, that everybody would just snap into line and go do what they need to do. But it didn't always work that way. You might be working with other organizations where you don't have that formal authority and where you need to be influential and where you need to be collaborative. So studying and learning about how to create the outcomes you need through influence rather than formal authority and power.
Your title.
Your title, thank you.
Right.
Yeah. became something that I learned early on as that's the key to achieving the outcome you want and you need, to building stronger team commitment around the mission rather than using the formal authority.
It's. I mean, I've seen that even for the most senior leaders. That's something that makes them successful in what they're doing. So those early roles in a career often shape how a leader shows up later. So how do working in such a mission critical environment shape your understanding of technical discipline and personal accountability in such a complex operational setting?
I've found through my career that those mission critical environments quickly expose the gap between authority and responsibility, right? And so kind of like we were just discussing, to me, acknowledging that in order to get something done, you need to be able to be influential first and fall back on your formal authority second is going to create that stronger team. It's going to create that stronger commitment between individuals on the team and between, across the entire enterprise that you're working. So to me, again, those mission critical things really expose those things quickly, and understanding how to dial in commitment through influence can make that much more effective.
Up to this point, Mark, your work was very operational and engineering focused. And then you stepped into a role where the conversations were very different. They were at the strategic and policy level. Your next job as a policy specialist for, let me get this right, research, development, test, and evaluation at the Office of the Secretary of Defense. What pulled you towards that role? And how did it broaden the way you think about systems and decision-making across an entire enterprise organization?
So I had decided as a, within the career civil servant space that I wanted to be the best that I could be and maximize my potential. So I entered into a competitive senior executive service development program with my agency. And part of that program required us to leave our comfort zone, go be uncomfortable somewhere else. So I had to do 2 rotational assignments. And the first one I chose was with the Office of Secretary of Defense, with research, development, test, and evaluation. What I found in that experience was you had this extraordinarily important mission around creating policy that could shape the entire department. At the same time, zero authority to get that done. And so using your, learning how to use your ability to influence, to collaborate, to understand where those stakeholders were coming from and what's important to them was the only way to get something done. Right. And it takes a lot of time and energy, a lot of collaboration and communication to get that done. And again, that's back to power and your responsibility and authority. You had you had the responsibility to get that done and almost no authority to get it done. So you're now using your relationship building, your personal influence, and your ability to collaborate.
I've learned that getting to know the team that you're with, but also the other players that are involved, even if it's like going out for coffee or just saying, hey, can we just meet one-on-one? I've found that goes a long way, particularly when it gets tough. So I appreciate they had a leadership development program. That sounds like what it was.
It was that. And again, being in an organization that was completely outside of what I was used to, where you had cost, schedule, performance, authority that was, pretty much get this, develop this outcome, design this black box. In this policymaking environment, it was how do we create alignment across the different stakeholders for the betterment of, for the entire department was the challenge. And I found that, where are those aligning points that we can have common ground to create a policy that is enterprise wide.
Yeah. sounds like you picked a good place to
I did.
go as part of that program.
It was a great experience, and it almost wanted to make me run for the hills because it was just that it was that challenging. It's post 9/11, a lot of tension, in the building, in the environment. But it was
I can't imagine.
huge learning experience for me.
All right. So you were used to a world of schematics and acronyms, but now you're talking in terms of impacts, risks, and decisions. And that's a big shift, which you were kind of alluding to, which you were actually saying. That's a big shift for an engineer to make. How did you figure out, and I'm asking this as a person that has had 34 years in technology, how did you figure out how to explain complex technical issues to senior leaders and the policymakers that you work with?
It's a great question. I have two. It's a two-part answer for me. First, I'm married to a very smart woman who's a teacher. So in order for us to have conversations about how was your day, or what are you working on, I had to leave the jargon and the acronyms at the door, right, when I came up for dinner, or when we were talking about our work. Anybody can understand what a teacher's doing because we have all been in school. We have all had teachers.
Yeah.
Not everybody can understand what I might be doing in an engineering policy environment. So learning how to take the jargon out, distill what I'm working on to a level that I can have a conversation with another intelligent human started at that sort of personal, in my own personal experience. From a professional standpoint, though, tying back into my environmental and energy master's degree, I ended up in a special assignment where I was responsible for environmental impact assessment. And in order to do that, we were using a lot of sophisticated modeling of the operation, and that modeling and the outcomes of that modeling had to be communicated to the public for feedback, for input. And so distilling complex engineering and military operations into a public forum was a very big translator for me. And it was usually just bringing it down again into plain English, common language that anybody could understand. And so I had that sort of personal experience as well as that professional experience where I was doing that translation, and that just stuck with me. It serves me today, certainly when I'm either trying to, internally when I'm trying to, promote what I want to do, externally what I'm trying to do with customers, and particularly in this environment of fast-changing technology, like artificial intelligence, large language models, things that need.
It's constantly changing.
It's constant. So you have to be able to understand it, grasp it, and be able to communicate it, and explain why it's important and why somebody should care about it.
Yeah. And I can totally relate.
I'm sure you can. Yeah.
I being in technology for so many years, my last position for about 4 years was preparing materials for the IT division for the board of directors. And what you just described was my life for 4 years.
Right.
So anyway, so that role puts you in a critical leadership space, integrating strategic priorities with operational execution. And so I'm curious, what did you take from that experience that still shapes the way you lead today?
I would characterize that in the terms of communications. So rather than communicating what I know or what you know, seeking to understand what your stakeholder needs to know, if they need to make a decision, if they need information, finding out, putting yourself in their shoes and finding out what they need from you shapes for me how I communicate, how I approach it from either a place of empathy or even a place of vulnerability. If that's what I need, the way I need to come across in order to understand what that person needs from my communication.
Right. Yeah, and I've learned that you have to be really good at situational leadership because different leaders accept the communication in different ways. So after spending time in the policy world, you then jumped into industry and you first started working at EHS Technologies.
That's right.
And that's a technology and engineering services company.
That's right.
That primarily supports the Department of Defense.
That's right. Yes.
This time you were in a role where you were responsible for leading people, programs, and outcomes in a much more direct way. What were the leadership muscles? I love saying that.
Okay.
What were the leadership muscles that shaped, that you had to shape and build during your time as a senior program manager?
And I love this because I'm going to answer it with two things: learning how to scale and learning how to pivot. So it was a really small company. It was an 8A firm. It had lots of opportunities, and we were looking to scale. Now, scaling is relative, but in this case, we were looking to double the size of the company through some opportunities, which we ended up winning and executing, and it was tremendous. So that scaling piece, thinking differently about where you are today to where you want to be, thinking about that destination of scale, making sure you have the right infrastructure in place, making sure you have the right people, make sure they have the right tools to take you to that scale. That's the first thing. I would say the second thing is being able to pivot on a moment's notice, that flexibility. So the business world is changing, the missions are changing constantly. So being able to adapt quickly helps you be successful. And I did learn that in that company where I was performing a lot of different roles. So that that adaptability became an important part of my success and part of my leadership.
I'm guessing you had to deal also with all of that going on. You had to manage the change within the company itself.
That's right.
I mean, and that's when you grow that quickly.
Right.
It's something that you need to address. Leaders need to address from a change management perspective.
For sure. A key example, when you think about, just managing a volume of proposals, if all of a sudden now you've achieved great success and you have, you've gone from, 3 proposals a quarter to 20 proposals a quarter, that's a big change.
That's a big, huge change.
Either we're going to burn ourselves out and fail, or we're going to figure out what we need to do to step up the scale so we can accommodate the outcomes that we need to create.
But you've learned so much.
I did. Yeah, I love working at small companies because you really get to learn a lot of different
And you play. I was going to say you wear a lot of hats.
You do.
You then moved into a role at Dynamics Research Corporation, which was later acquired by Agility, and you were stepping into a role that had a much broader technical and organizational responsibilities. So as a director of systems engineering and assurance, how did you approach building teams that could operate with both precision and quality?
So this is a moment in my career where I was moving from managing a team, maybe managing a portfolio, to managing a team of teams. So it became important for me to be successful, or to me to be effective and meet customer demands and company expectations, to hire the right leaders and get them in the right positions and give them the tools they need to deliver and to build their own teams and to develop their own cadence around how they were going to develop those outcomes. So for me, when we talk about scale, that was a time where I went from, managing a team of, say, 50 to managing a team of 100. And as you know, it coming from your deep background, that becomes investing in those key leaders and creating a culture, creating alignment around what we need to do to collectively, but also giving them the tools and support that they need to be successful in their jobs.
Yeah.
So that was a defining moment for me.
So it really was broader.
Yes,
as far as
it was. Yes,
for responsibilities.
Yes, and that was one other thing I'll mention. That was also the first time I had gone from a privately held company to a publicly traded company. So that's a whole other.
Oh, that's a whole other
level
of pressure.
A layer of discipline around what quarterly financials really mean, what an annual operating and operating plan really means. And so those are all just, it's very much a time of learning for me.
And that's great. So this is a point in your career where your organizational mastery really started to come in focus, and where you were aligning people, processes, and priorities across a complex engineering environment. What did you learn about creating clarity and alignment across such a complex engineering program?
Number one thing I learned is, and your question is around clarity and alignment. So the number one thing I learned at that time was defining that short and long-term goal with your team, creating actionable, measurable steps as your roadmap leading up to those short and long-term goals with your team is the right way to go. What doesn't work is creating those goals in a vacuum and then blasting them out. You're not going to get commitment.
It's the worst.
I've
seen that happen in my career.
Yes. So that alignment comes from setting the vision, setting that the audacious goal that we need to get to out off in horizon, but then working with your team to create the detail around that and then create the steps to achieve it. So that was a defining moment for me. And that sort of strategic planning approach is something I've done throughout my career, but this was a moment in time where I'm doing this at a broader scale.
Yeah. After Dynamics Research Corporation, you then moved to Agility, and that was a major shift into enterprise leadership. Although it sounds like you were pretty much there before, but this is, I'm assuming, just broader.
Yes.
Bigger. So you were, again, responsible for aligning people, processes, but also performance. And this was across wide range of engineering programs. So as the vice president and director of engineering services, what were the biggest challenges that you had to take on at this level?
So that shift for me from Dynamics Research to Agility was actually through an acquisition. And it couldn't have been a bigger culture clash. It was opposite cultures. One culture was very much science, engineering, research. One culture was low LPTA, low price technically acceptable, market disruptor. I mean, those were two different things when you think about investments, when you think about the kinds of people. Yet my job was, the contracts went with the acquisition, the customers came with us, the people came with us. It was a change management challenge, 100%. And if you've been, anyone that's ever been through an acquisition knows that, the leadership changes, and we had 100% leadership changeover, and then just constant change at the leadership level for a period of time. So my challenge was to understand that dynamic, make sure my team understood the dynamic, and making sure that we could still focus on achieving the mission, achieving the contract deliverables, making sure that people were able to get what they needed from a professional standpoint through that cultural shift, and constant communication. Because as we all know in change management, if you're not communicating to your team, they're going to fill in the blanks. So I found myself communication, constant communication was key to that change management challenge.
Yeah. Yes, and it takes a lot of care and feeding.
A lot. And not everybody liked going from one culture to another. The benefits were different. The feel of, investments were different. Opportunities for, working on, research projects were different. And it wasn't everybody's jam. Right. And so helping people through that, and in some cases, in the spirit of my mentor, helping people find what is right for them was part of what I had to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there was a lot of change going on in your space where you were working. But from my understanding, there was also a lot of change going on in the industry, a lot of transformation. and balancing that with execution, which is not always easy.
No, it's not.
So how did you guide teams through that change and while keeping them focused on both the mission and quality?
Yeah. So I found that, obviously top-down communication is good because that does help fill in the blanks. It does help communicate through times of change.
Mm-hmm.
But I also found that communicating at the working level, at the team level became very important as a way to solicit feedback, as a way to understand what's important to everybody in the organization. So setting up, this might sound silly, but setting up periodic coffees at the workplace, at the places where my people were performing, became an effective tool to understand what was important to them, what was going on in their minds, what was going on in their worlds, how the change was affecting them, and things that we could do to make that better. Mm. And that goes a long way.
I was going to say that.
Some people say, management by walking around. I'm saying management through coffee talk, or or your beverage of choice talk, just to get to connect on another level. To me, seemed like an effective way to understand. What's going on.
Yeah, I mean, my experience again was you'd have these big town halls where everybody's there and you're just receiving the information.
Sure.
But to be able to sit down with leaders, whatever it might be, it could even be lunch or, like you said, coffee. It's really meaningful to the employees, and from my experience, the leaders get a lot out of it too. So.
Right, and we've all experienced it at town hall. The vocal few that have something to say.
Oh, you always get something.
You get that, but then you also have the folks that aren't comfortable in that.
That's exactly right.
And so, being able to be in a smaller environment, a more intimate setting, creates a different dynamic and enables different feedback.
Right. So, so this is where your motivational mastery was really essential. How did you keep people inspired and connected to purpose during all these periods of uncertainty?
Well, I think it does start with, again, understanding what is important to the individual. And so we talked a little bit about vulnerability, right? So I found that being open and honest about how I might be impacted by a change, or I might be impacted by what's going on in the environment, opens up that vulnerability for someone else to be vulnerable with me. And so to me, connecting at that individual level or in that small group level does enable people to be comfortable so that you can really understand what pivots we need to make, what changes we need to make in order to keep the commitment high to create those outcomes.
That sounds exactly what you should be doing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So there was another acquisition.
There was.
So Agility was acquired by SAIC.
That's right.
And I'm going to read this because I can't memorize. But so SAIC is a technology and engineering integrator that supports critical U.S. government missions across defense, space, civilian, and intelligence sectors. So you are now the Vice President of Programs for SAIC's National Security and Space Sector. This is a role that connects you with a really broad community of teams and mission partners that are all working on a shared national security roles.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you to take on what sounds like a really big role?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what excites you most about the results that you're delivering today?
Yeah. I love where this conversation is going. Well, so we've reorganized since that last.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have. And a lot of that is what's going on in the market today, right? We've had to adapt just like everybody else has. So
I hear you.
Yeah, so I'm actually now part of the Air Force Space and Intel organization. It's all of the Air Force work, all the space work, including civilian, and all the intelligence work. I'm running a portion of that is focused on defense agencies and fourth estates. But it's an exciting reorganization for me because I'm able to work with my peers very closely in those other environments where so many things are coming together. So to answer your question, what excites me about taking on that role as an integrator and what's different about what we've talked about so far is what I've done so far is primarily service oriented. As an integrator, we're now focused on bringing technologies together, people, technologies, and tools to focus on a specific outcome, and in some cases, a specific product or a specific, deliverable for the warfighter that really makes a difference. And so it's a much bigger scale. We're a Fortune 500 company. So we've talked about scale, and I talked about scale in this organization. We're really talking about scale.
Big scale.
So I'm proud to say, some of the largest programs that have helped win are in the billions, not just the millions. So that's exciting. But that also means huge leadership challenges, right? Because we're talking about teams of teams, not just in the hundreds, but multiple hundreds of people. So I might have strayed from your question, but what excites me about taking that on is just, again, the scale and the ability to really do powerful things for the customer and for the mission.
And I'm curious, do you have any other leaders that have continued through this series of acquisitions?
There are very few.
I was going to say, I think you're probably a rare bird.
Yeah, I don't know that we didn't, as part of my origin story, the value of, or the grit and tenacity kind of comes with me. Mm-hmm. You definitely need a lot of grit, tenacity to go through a number of acquisitions. I would say at every one of those points, though, I've asked the question, is this the right place for me? And I found out yes,
and it has been,
because here's the opportunity, and here's why, and here's what's good. And so, but being at a large technology integration company opens up a lot of learning and a lot of growth, particularly in this moment of time where we are, at this intersection of artificial intelligence, agentic AI, large language models. There's so much power to be done, and working in a large company like that, you really have a lot of influence and make a difference, for our customers.
It sounds really fascinating to me. I was like, a lot of moving pieces, but a lot of rewards, which is always great for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you were just speaking about intersection. It's SAIC sits at the intersection of national security and innovation. So I'm curious, how do you create a culture where the engineers feel empowered to innovate, but also delivering on like the rigorous, I'm assuming particularly with what you're in, very rigorous mission requirements?
Mm-hmm. We came up with a method on our team where we are rewarding two things. One, rewarding bringing in the ideas, and then rewarding when those ideas turn into new business or turn into expanded business. So innovation in some ways becomes a numbers game, right? For every 10 ideas you have, you might have 0.5 stick, one stick, right?
I was going to say one.
Yeah, right. Well, one stick.
Yeah.
And so first is rewarding, bringing in the ideas. We're having the conversation where we want to hear what the idea is, hear what the business case could be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we have to make a decision. Is this something we're going to pursue or invest in? Number one. Number two, when those ideas turn into either a differentiator for the customer, expanded business for the customer, or a spin-off new business, we were rewarding that monetarily for our people for that effort, because it is going above and beyond their current role, and thinking outside the box, and oftentimes putting themselves in an uncomfortable position for some people to have the conversation with the customer to say, have you thought about this? This problem over here, what if we were to do this? And so that, you're going out on a limb. Not all customers are receptive, but you have to try.
Yes.
And so that's
if done in the right way.
If done in the right way, right. But it first takes someone to have the courage to see the opportunity and ask the questions.
Yeah. So leadership at your level requires a systems view of people, process, and outcomes. So how do you balance near-term execution with longer-term strategic priorities?
A lot of times for me, it's bounding and framing the energy in the conversation depending on where, the situation you're in. So an example of that would be with my business development team, we're looking at a sales cycle that can be, we're looking at opportunities in the pipeline that are, say, 3 years out. So we're making sure we're identifying those, or in some cases, envisioning what those could be to create those opportunities that don't exist today. In other cases, we have something that might be 18 months out now, and we've now gathered the intelligence around it. We understand what the customer environment is, and now we're starting the solution. And then, bringing something closer in, we're now looking at what is the solution? How do we differentiate? Have we tested it with the customer? And so the energy that it takes at those different levels and the conversation are entirely different.
Yeah.
So framing it that way, but setting up intentional conversations is the way I manage that.
So Mark, most leaders have a point in their career that they realize that leadership isn't just about the work. It's also about how you show up for your people. Can you share one experience that reshaped the way you inspire and connect with others?
I like to think of showing up in a work environment is about integration. So integrating your whole self into the environments that you're in. So that takes authenticity. In some cases, it takes vulnerability. It also takes empathy to understand what's going on around you. And so for me, a lesson that I take away, particularly with the people that I'm working with every day, is understanding where they are when they show up for work that day, or when they are showing up for that work in that time frame. Examples are, anybody that's having a baby. That's a big deal, right? And your energy changes and your priorities are changing, but yet you're showing up every day trying to deliver, priorities and deliver to customers. So having that understanding and that empathy about where people are coming from is important as a leader. You might have someone who is decided to pursue an advanced degree. And at SAIC, that's one of our benefits. Many companies have that as a benefit, but that becomes something that's integrated in that person's life, and then you have to integrate that energy into their professional life. So seeking to understand where people are coming from every day when they show up, to me, has been an important skill that sustained me through my leadership journey.
So as my last question.
All righty. I'm ready for it.
You ready?
Yes.
So when you think about the next generation that's coming into this field, what advice would you give to early career engineers who want to grow into leaders who can influence, inspire, and change organizations?
So I have adult children, and I have 2 adult children, and one who's working his way through college. And I've also had the opportunity to mentor and work with many college graduates and interns over time. It's something that has resonated with me, thinking about my own experience as a young professional, and now what I observe with other young professionals is there's no substitution for putting in the work early in your career to learn that skill or learn that thing that you're working on in that moment in time. I could say, bloom where you're planted, but So if you've graduated with a finance degree and you're in a finance role, learn everything you can about finance, because that's important to understand how money flows in and out of an organization and out of a business. So having that skill first and foremost and putting in the work to learn it early career is very important. That foundation then can begin to be your leverage for how you look at leadership. Early career, you might be finding yourself leading a team. So if you're in finance or you're in engineering and you're leading a team, you're now leading from a place of, I understand engineering, and now I'm going to work with other people to help them learn engineering. And that's sort of an early leadership skill that becomes very important. So to me, putting in the work, learning the skill, and then using that as a springboard for what's next becomes important in your early career.
Yeah, and not everybody wants to be a leader, but
no, true.
But those that do, I totally agree with you, because and it's a two-way street, right? You need to have focus on, okay, that's the path that you want to go on, and usually you know pretty early in your career that, okay, I want to go that way. And then there's nothing worse than someone getting promoted from a technical background into a leadership role where they have maybe one of the lead masteries, but they don't have all of them. And the only way you get all of them before you get promoted in that kind of position is to seek out those opportunities and work with them, work with your leaders, your managers. Well, I can't believe it's the end, and I want to thank you for sharing your story and hearing about how you built your career from the early engineering project days to where you are now. Really highlights the intentional choices behind your leadership. And actually, Mark, that's what Leap Today is all about.
It's awesome. Well, I thank you for having me today. It's been a fun conversation.
It has. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank our excellent host, Bill Farmer, for leading today's conversation. I'm Janelle Millard, president of the Leap Enterprise, and I'm so glad you invested your time with us here on Leap Today, the show where we talk to leaders, luminaries, and lifelong learners. Each conversation is a chance to see leadership in motion, a reminder that it is never static. We focus on the real work that drives success, the moments that shape teams, stretch our thinking, and turn insight into lasting action. If something resonated with you today, put it into practice. Try it out in your next conversation, your next decision, or your next challenge. We would love to hear where it takes you. We'll meet you right back here next time as we continue to unlock the full potential of leadership. Until then, you can find us at theleapenterprise.com. Thanks again for being part of Leap Today.